I knew my sister was selfish, but I never expected she'd go this far. Ruining my youth, just for a few hours of freedom. I'm not exaggerating. If you've ever lived in a family where your sister has kids, means you must sacrifice everything, you'll understand why I was crying while writing my paper in the middle of the night, with 2 toddlers climbing on my back like they were playing horseback. And the worst part? No one in the family saw anything wrong with it. I endured it long enough thinking it would eventually pass, but I was wrong. It only got worse, day by day, hour by hour, until I almost lost myself. My name is Clara. I'm 22, living with my parents in suburban Ohio, and this is the story of how I was forced to give up my life, just to be my sister's unpaid nanny. I'm a senior majoring in communications at a public university, about a 30-minute drive from home. My life should have been all about classes, exams, and post-grad dreams, but no. For me, college didn't mean freedom. It meant a constant race between assignments and diapers. It all started 3 years ago, in the fall of my freshman year. Back then, I was naive enough to think that helping my sister watch the kids for a bit was just common sense. Especially when she showed up at our house in a panic, holding her newborn daughter in one arm, a diaper bag in the other, talking frantically. "Clara, I have a super important meeting, just 1 hour, please watch the twins for me." I looked at the babies, just a few months old, eyes closed, lips puckered, and thought, how hard could it be? I nodded. 1 hour, sure. But then the first cry came 15 minutes in. Then the second. Then came the wet diapers, hiccups, spit up. 1 hour turned into 2, then 3. The sun set before I realized it, and I was exhausted, covered in milk, my hair sticky with drool. When my sister, her name is Samantha, finally returned, she didn't look like someone who had just left a meeting. She was holding Macy's shopping bags and a Starbucks cup. She smiled brightly. "Thanks, sweetheart, you're a natural mom." I gave a half-hearted smile, not knowing that being a natural mom would turn into a 3-year sentence with no parole. From that day on, Samantha started treating me like her personal babysitter. Sometimes it was, "I have a dentist appointment," or "I need to grocery shop alone," or "Jack and I have a weekend date." Every reason sounded so reasonable that even my parents didn't think anything was wrong. And me? I didn't dare say no. At first, it was just a few hours. Then, full Sundays. Once, she left the twins at our house for 3 days, because Jack had an urgent work thing, and I need to go with him to keep the spark alive. I wasn't asked. She just dropped the diaper bag on the couch and disappeared. I remember the first time I tried to say no. That day I had a midterm for my media philosophy class. When Samantha showed up, arms full of baby seats, diapers, and toys, I stopped her. "Sis, I have a test this afternoon, I need to study." She gave me a side glance, smirked, and walked right in. "Oh, come on, Clara, don't be dramatic. The kids sleep most of the time, you can study while they nap." Sound familiar? Yup, that line haunted me throughout college. You can do anything while they nap. Anyone who's ever cared for babies knows. It's the cruelest lie. Her twins, Olivia and Ethan, may look like angels, but they were 2 tiny storms ready to tear apart any plan I had. I once wrote a 1,200-word paper with one hand, while rocking a teething, feverish Ethan with the other. I'd fallen asleep at my desk just hours before a deadline, because Olivia had been up all night, and only calmed down when I sang to her. My grades dropped. My health declined. My friendships faded because Clara's always busy babysitting. No one understood why I always turned down hangouts, or vanished every weekend. I once tried talking to my parents, saying babysitting was affecting my future. But they just sighed. "Samantha's got it hard. You're her sister, what's wrong with helping a bit?" I forced a smile, nodded, and sank deeper into the shadows of the family. But inside, a suffocating feeling was building. As if I no longer lived for myself. And I didn't know that everything would soon explode. All because of a seemingly small opportunity, a trip I had longed for. I used to think if I tried hard enough, people would recognize everything I was sacrificing, but no. The more I gave in, the more they took me for granted. Every time I complained, Samantha would shut me down with her soft, condescending voice. Clara, don't be so dramatic, you're their aunt, can't you spare a little time for family? I scoffed. A little time? At that moment, I was typing a presentation on a laptop balanced on my knee, wiping Ethan's runny nose with one hand, and keeping Olivia from rolling off the couch with the other. It was nearly midnight. The presentation was at 8 a.m. I hadn't even started the main part. Samantha didn't see that. Or maybe she did, and just chose to ignore it. When I told her I couldn't babysit because I had a test, she responded with a dry laugh. A test? You can retake it, but I can't get another free day with my husband. You're still young, Clara. That stuff isn't as important as family. I'd heard the phrase family so many times it made my skin crawl. My sister was a master of emotional manipulation. She knew exactly when to act weak and when to explode. When I hesitated, she would sigh, eyes glistening like I was some heartless monster who only thought of herself. And when I firmly refused, she'd scream that I was a traitor, a selfish person with no heart. And the worst part? My parents never took my side. They always said, "Your sister has her own family now. If you can help, just help." Help. Such a gentle word for a role that came with no pay, no time limits, and not even a decent thank you. I started losing everything. I missed my best friend's birthday party because my sister had a therapy appointment for Olivia. I missed a major assignment deadline because Jack threw his back out and she needed me to watch the kids for a day. One day turned into 2, then 3. Friends slowly drifted away. They didn't say anything outright, but I could feel it. Fewer invitations, group chats no longer tagging me. Everyone thought I was lazy, irresponsible. They didn't know I was just barely surviving, between two worlds. One of ideals and dreams, and one of diapers and endless crying. One time, I collapsed right in the campus library. Not from ordinary tiredness, but from complete exhaustion. I hadn't slept more than an hour at a time for 48 hours, because Ethan had a high fever, and Olivia kept begging, "Aunt Clara, sing again," every time I closed my eyes. My communications professor called me into her office, asking if I was having mental health issues, because my assignments had been late repeatedly. I just bowed my head. How could I say, "Yes, ma'am, my sister has trapped me in a full-time nanny job with no days off"? I once tried to cut it all off. I turned off my phone, locked my door, and decided to spend one whole weekend working on my final project. Samantha left 13 missed calls, 7 texts. The last call came from my mother. "Clara, how could you do that? You made your sister cry. Don't you know she's under a lot of stress?" I stared at the ceiling, a pounding headache rising with every beat. That was the last time I tried to set boundaries. Since then I learned to compromise with captivity. I learned to sleep on chairs, eat instant noodles while rocking someone else's baby to sleep, write reports to the sound of screaming and spilled cereal on my keyboard. That was Clara's life. Just a quiet shadow revolving around other people's convenience. Sometimes I wondered, if I disappeared, would anyone in my family actually miss me? Or would they just find someone else to do the job I grudgingly carried? I remember one stormy night, thunder crashing outside. Olivia woke up startled. I held her, trying to soothe her for what felt like forever. My eyes were burning, my whole body aching. I looked up at the high school graduation photo on the wall. The eyes in that photo were full of hope and dreams. The me standing there now saw only a gray, suffocating wall, like the life I was trapped in. I knew I couldn't go on like this, but when you've been shackled for too long, even thinking about freedom makes you feel guilty. Yes, I had thought about saying no for good. But then I imagined my mother's disappointment, my father's silence, my sister screaming, and me backing down once again. Until something happened. Something small, but enough to ignite the explosion I'd been holding in for 3 years. An invitation. A plan. A glimpse of hope. I didn't expect that glimmer of hope to be the very thing that revealed my sister's true colors. I can't even remember the last time I felt excited about my own life. But when I held the envelope with a $10,000 check from my grandmother for graduation, my heart pounded like a door had finally cracked open after 3 dark years. "I know you've sacrificed so much, my dear," my grandmother said, her voice trembling with age. "Now, go do something just for yourself." I nearly cried at the dinner table. It wasn't just the money. It was the first true recognition I'd received after years of living for others. That night I told my close friends, Jenna, Melissa and Naomi, the ones who kept checking in even when I rarely had time to reply. Over a few cups of coffee, somehow the topic shifted to the dream trip each of us wanted after graduation. Naomi wanted to go to Italy, Jenna was obsessed with Spain, and then Melissa asked, "What about you, Clara? Didn't you used to say you wanted to go somewhere?" I smiled but felt a pang in my chest. Those dreams had been locked away in my memory for so long. But then I answered, for the first time in years with real confidence, France. I've always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower and sit in a cafe on the streets of Paris. The table went silent for a moment. Then Naomi clapped. "Then let's go to France." Within just 1 hour everything changed. My phone lit up non-stop. Flight booking websites, hotel reservations, travel plans. Laughter filled the room. My eyes lit up. For the first time in 3 years, I could clearly see the light of something called hope. The plane tickets were booked. The hotel in Montmartre was confirmed. We would leave in early August, just 3 weeks away. I had made a packing list, bought a new suitcase, and started reading up on French cuisine. I had never felt more like Clara. Not a babysitter, not Samantha's silent shadow, but me. A young woman freshly graduated, excited to see the world. The next day I got home earlier than usual because Mom said we were having a family dinner. Dad was grilling outside, and the smell of BBQ sauce filled the whole house. And of course, Samantha showed up, dragging Jack and the 2 kids who were screaming and running all over the place as usual. After dinner, while everyone was still at the table, I shared my news. "I've booked a trip to France. This August I'm going on vacation with a few friends." As soon as I finished, the sound of metal hitting a plate rang out sharply. Samantha dropped her fork. Her eyes widened like I'd just announced I was joining the circus. "What? When?" "Early August. We finalized everything last night." "Early August?" Her voice was sharp as a blade. "Clara, you're kidding, right?" I looked at her, calm. "I'm not kidding, this is the first trip I've ever planned for myself. And I'm going." Samantha clenched her teeth, gripping her glass so tight I thought it might shatter. "You know Jack and I already planned our Colorado trip that week. You knew. You picked that time on purpose to get out of it." "I didn't know," I replied, still trying to stay calm. "We just talked and booked everything last night." She shot up from her seat like she couldn't take another second. "Cancel it. Cancel that trip right now. I need you to watch the kids. There's no one else." Every eye in the room turned to me. My dad looked down at his plate. My mom opened her mouth to say something, then stopped. I took a deep breath. "I'm not canceling. I've spent the last 3 years being your nanny, sacrificing my studies, my friends, and my life. This is the first time I'm doing something for myself. And I'm not asking. I'm telling." Samantha slammed her hand on the table, startling the kids. "You're so selfish, Clara. Who do you expect to watch them while I'm gone? You know Dad's going through heart treatment and Mom works full-time. Who's going to help?" I let out a cold laugh. "Hire someone. If you can afford a vacation, you can afford a babysitter." "No, no, no," she screamed. "I don't trust strangers. The kids need someone they know." "Then stay home. You're their mother. Your kids should come first. Not me." Samantha's face turned bright red. She pointed her finger at me. "You're going to regret this, Clara. I mean it." I stood up, eyes locked on hers. I've been regretting it for the past 3 years, but now, I choose myself. I walked upstairs, my heart pounded in my chest, part fear, part relief. Downstairs I could hear Mom trying to calm her down, but I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I had stood up for myself. I had no idea that was just the beginning. A storm far worse was brewing, just because I dared to dream of a trip. I thought after that night things would settle down, that Samantha, no matter how angry, would accept the truth. I was no longer the obedient little sister who always said yes. But I was wrong. The next morning she showed up at our house, no warning, no knocking, just like always. I had just opened my eyes when I heard the kids screaming downstairs. Olivia crying because she couldn't find her favorite teddy bear, Ethan banging his toys on the floor like he was leading a drumline. I dragged myself down the stairs, still in my pajamas, hair a mess, and there she was, Samantha, greeting me with a smile so sweet it could rot your teeth. "Oh, Clara, I have to rush out, there's an emergency meeting at the kids' school, can you watch them for me, just for a little while?" I froze, feeling like someone had just dumped a bucket of ice water over my head. "Are you serious?" "Yeah, it's really important, you know how hard being a mom is, and you're free." Free. I cut her off, my voice shaking with anger. Maybe I wasn't clear enough yesterday, so let me say it again. I'm not watching the kids anymore. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Samantha pressed her lips together, her eye twitching, her whole face tensed, as if trying to hold on to composure. "Clara, you're acting like a child. You think just because you've got some silly trip planned, you get to turn your back on your family? It's not a silly trip, Samantha. It's my dream. It's a reward I deserve after everything I've sacrificed." "Sacrificed?" she snapped. "Watching the kids a little bit is a sacrifice? You're not the only one who's had to give things up. Do you even know how hard it is being a mom? You think I get time for myself?" I was silent for a moment, then laughed. A dry, empty laugh. "You still get your spa days every Saturday. You still go on dates with Jack. You still go shopping at least once a week. Meanwhile, I haven't had one night out with friends. I've lost 3 years of my youth changing diapers and making bottles. And you say I haven't sacrificed anything?" "You're being ridiculous," she screamed. "You act like the whole world revolves around your cheap little vacation plan." I stepped up one stair, eye level with her now, locking eyes. "No. I've just started to make my world revolve around me, because for too long it's been revolving around your selfishness." Samantha stepped back, her face pale with fury. "You're doing this to spite me, aren't you?" "I knew it. You planned this whole trip just to run off when I need you most. You want revenge." I took a deep breath, swallowing the rage rising in my throat. "It's not revenge, it's saving myself." She glared at me, then turned to our mom, who was standing behind the kitchen counter, still holding an untouched cup of tea. "Mom, did you hear what she said? She's turning her back on her family." My mom just sighed. No words, no defense, no pushback, same as always. I didn't expect anything else from her anymore. "Samantha," I said quietly, but my voice was sharp as a blade, "I'm not your little sister you can boss around anymore. I've had enough. I don't owe you. I don't owe those kids. I don't owe this family. You're selfish. Ungrateful," she roared. "I've taken care of you for years." I cut her off. "How, exactly, have you taken care of me?" "By forcing me to give up everything so you could live comfortably." I stepped down the stairs, grabbed my purse off the chair, pulled out the folder with the plane tickets and hotel confirmations, and tossed them on the table. "Flights are booked, hotels confirmed. I'm going to France. And I'm not changing my plans." The room went silent. My sister just stood there. The kids started whimpering, sensing the tension. I didn't bother comforting them. Samantha hissed through her teeth. "You'll regret this, Clara, I swear. You'll regret turning your back on your family." I walked toward the door. "Maybe, but at least this time it's my choice." I closed the door behind me. A firm click. like a full stop at the end of the sentence I'd written with 3 years of self-erasure, in the name of being a good little sister. What I didn't know was that Samantha's fury didn't stop at empty threats. Because she had another plan. Something that made me feel like I was dreaming, only it was a nightmare I never saw coming. I still remember the exact moment everything fell apart. Less than 24 hours away from stepping foot in Paris, the dream I'd locked away for years was finally coming true. I had just finished tagging my luggage, tucked all important documents into the locked compartment of my suitcase, ready for tomorrow's airport run. Everything was perfect, down to the smallest detail. I'd only been out of the house for an hour. A quick trip to the local supermarket to grab sunscreen, camera batteries, and a few last-minute things for the trip. When I came back, the late afternoon sun was casting a golden glow through the windows. Everything looked peaceful. Until I heard giggling from the living room. I froze. That giggle. It was Olivia. And Ethan. Samantha hadn't been to the house in weeks. What were the kids doing here? I dropped the shopping bag on the kitchen counter and ran straight into the living room. Then, I saw them. Olivia was holding a blue marker, Ethan had a pair of scissors in his hand, and between them was my passport. I lunged forward like I'd been electrocuted, snatching the passport out of their hands. My fingers trembled as I flipped through the pages. No. The first page, the one with my portrait, the one that confirmed my legal identity, had a giant hole cut through it. The edges were jagged, clearly sliced with scissors. The rest of the pages were scribbled all over with colored markers, red, blue, yellow, purple. Even the visa stamps were defaced. Everything was destroyed beyond repair. I sank to the floor, mouth agape, unable to make a sound. My throat closed up, and my heart pounded so violently I thought it would burst. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't accept what was right in front of me. No! I screamed. A sound that tore through the room. My scream startled the kids. Olivia clutched Ethan, both of them frozen. But I didn't care anymore. My entire world had just been ripped apart by 2 children. And by someone behind them. I didn't need proof. Only one name flashed through my mind. Samantha. I screamed again, this time with tears. Anger, pain and helplessness, all twisting into one uncontrollable cry. Less than a minute later, my parents and Samantha rushed into the room. My mom looked horrified at the scene. Me collapsed on the floor, clutching my shredded passport, tears pouring down my face. What happened? My mom cried out. I held up the passport, shaking like I might explode. Look, the kids destroyed my passport. I'm supposed to fly tomorrow, Mom. You know that. Today's the last day. Samantha didn't even look surprised. No remorse, no shock, no concern. She crossed her arms and sighed. Claire, you really need to be more careful with important things. You know how curious the kids are. Why would you leave your passport somewhere they could get to it? I snapped my head toward her, eyes blazing. What? I nearly screamed in her face. I didn't leave it out, it was in a locked suitcase, in a hidden compartment, inside a sealed document pouch. You think 2 5-year-olds just happened to open all that and grab my passport? My mom opened her mouth trying to say something, but nothing came out. Samantha remained calm, almost smug. Kids are smarter than you think. Maybe you forgot to zip it up, maybe you were careless. But blaming the kids isn't fair. I stood up, clutching the ruined passport, my voice coming from the depths of despair. Stop pretending, you gave it to them. I don't know how, but I know you did this. You knew I wasn't canceling my trip, so you made sure I couldn't go. This was all part of your plan, wasn't it? Samantha shrugged, casually inspecting her bright red nails. You're being paranoid. If you leave important things around kids, you suffer the consequences. You're the adult here, Clara, take responsibility. My mom stared at me, confused. My dad said nothing, unusually silent. His hands clenched like he was holding something in. I stepped back, looking at all 3 of them. Samantha, my mom, my dad. Then at the two kids still sitting on the floor. Wide-eyed and innocent. The room spun. I felt nothing. My heart was shattered, but the rage inside me still burned, slow and steady. I gripped the ruined passport tightly and spoke, my voice barely more than a whisper, but solid as steel. You think you've won, don't you? Samantha smiled, the kind of smile that tasted like poison. I don't need to win, I just need you to stay. I nodded, a bitter hollow nod. But inside me something shifted. Stronger now. Colder. She thought she had just crushed my last hope. But Samantha forgot one thing. I'm someone who spent my youth living in sacrifice. And someone like me, once they've lost everything, doesn't give up easily. I sat frozen on the couch, still clutching the shredded passport in my hands, my mind a whirlwind of pain, anger, and utter confusion. Samantha stood there, calm as if she had just cleaned up a pile of toys, not destroyed the dream I'd waited 3 years to realize. My mom was trying to soothe the two whimpering kids, and my dad remained silent. Until he stood up. I had never seen my father like that. His eyes were ice cold, his voice low and sharp as a blade. Ethan, Olivia, come here with Grandpa for a moment. The kids hesitated, glancing at Samantha as if seeking permission. She froze, but didn't dare stop them. Come here, kids, he repeated, his tone leaving no room for refusal. Olivia tugged on her brother's sleeve and they walked over. My dad knelt down to their level, and his expression softened just a bit. Sweethearts, Grandpa just wants the truth. Who gave you Aunt Clara's passport? Who let you use the scissors and markers? Ethan blinked, then smiled brightly like he was telling a harmless secret. Mommy did, Grandpa. She said we were making a surprise gift for Aunt Clara. My heart stopped. The air in the room thickened. Each word from that little boy cut through every nerve in my body. Olivia mumbled softly. Mommy said the picture in the passport was ugly and needed to be cut out. Then she said to decorate it pretty so Aunt Clara would love it. I turned to look at Samantha. Her face had gone pale, frozen like stone. Every trace of smugness from earlier had vanished. My father stood up suddenly. What the hell is this, Samantha? His voice cracked through the living room like thunder. My mom jumped in shock, and Samantha took a step back, her face white as a sheet. Dad, I just what? He roared. You taught those kids to destroy your sister's passport? Do you even realize what you've done? Samantha started trembling, fumbling for an excuse. I just wanted her to stay. I panicked. Jack couldn't change the tickets, and I had no one to watch the kids. So you destroyed Clara's plans? And dragged your own children into this disgusting stunt? His voice cracked from the fury and disappointment. I had never seen him this angry. Not even during his worst arguments with Mom. Samantha burst into tears, mascara streaking down her face. She threw herself at my mom, clutching her arm like a drowning woman. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't think it would end up like this. My mom just shook her head silently, pulling her hand away, eyes filled with tears. My father stepped to the center of the room. His voice was no longer loud, but ice cold. That's enough, Clara, come here. I stood up, though my hands and knees were still trembling, my heart still aching. He looked at me for a long moment, as if weighing every word. I'm sorry, Clara. For letting you suffer this long without speaking up. I've seen it all. I've just stayed silent for too long. I bit my lip, not trusting my ears. Then he turned to Samantha, and his voice became stone. The $400,000 your mother and I were going to give you to buy a house, it's canceled. Don't call, don't beg, don't try to negotiate. From this moment on, every cent will go to Clara. Samantha's head shot up like she'd been doused in cold water. What? You heard me, he said without blinking. You don't deserve any support. Clara will use that money to start her own life, far from your toxic manipulation. You can't do this, Samantha screamed, almost hissing. I'm your daughter, I have a family. The kids need a home. Then figure it out, he said flatly. Clara's my daughter too. And she's sacrificed more than enough. No one said another word. Samantha collapsed onto the couch, sobbing, while the kids looked around, confused and wide-eyed. My mom stood by the window, silent as a statue, her shoulders trembling slightly. And me. I felt something inside me ache, but also something strange and light. I never thought my father would stand up for me like that. I never imagined I'd be handed a chance to escape the dark cycle I'd been trapped in for so long. But that moment, broken and chaotic as it was the first time I truly felt like I had a voice. And I knew I was never going back to the person I used to be. I thought after that explosion, everything would be shattered beyond repair. But strangely, from the wreckage, freedom began to flicker. Even though my passport was destroyed, even though my trip to France was cancelled at the last minute, I was left with something far more precious. Clarity. I cried all night, but not because I missed the trip. I cried because, after all these years, I finally saw my dad take my side. The next morning I got a call from Jenna. Flora, we heard everything. Naomi said your mom called her. Your passport got destroyed? Oh my God, we're so freaking mad. I gripped the phone, my voice tight. I'm sorry I ruined everyone's plans. There was a pause, then Jenna spoke firmly. No. I'm just going to ask you one thing. When will you have a new passport? I was stunned. We'll wait, Melissa cut in, her voice unwavering. The trip means nothing if you're not there. Naomi laughed softly. Paris has been around for hundreds of years, Clara. It's not going anywhere. But us? We only have this moment. We go together, or not at all. I covered my face and cried, but this time they were tears of gratitude, of peace, of warmth. I had never felt so truly loved in my life. It took nearly 2 months to get a new passport. During that time, I did something I had always been kept from doing. I lived for myself. Dad started transferring portions of the house money into my account, just like he promised. Mom quietly helped me find a 2-bedroom apartment near downtown Columbus, where I had been hired as an internal communications associate at a tech startup. The apartment wasn't big, but it was bright, tidy, and strangely peaceful. No more kids screaming, no more surprise doorbells. No one barging into my room asking me to just watch them for a bit. On move-in day, my dad carried the last box of books up the stairs, wiped his forehead, then turned to me. I've never been prouder of anyone than I am of you right now. I hugged him tightly. What had been stolen from me over the past 3 years, love, confidence, my voice, was slowly coming back. Samantha didn't show up to say goodbye. After that awful night, she had pretty much vanished from the house. Mom said she'd quit her job and was now staying home full-time with the kids. At first, she called to complain and blame everyone, but eventually, even that stopped. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt free. In November, my 3 best friends and I landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport. I can't even describe what it felt like to set foot on French soil. For one, it was freezing, but mostly, it was because my heart was screaming with emotion. We stayed in a small weekly rental in the Marais. Mornings were for croissants, afternoons sipping café au lait by the Seine, and evenings wandering cobblestone alleys lit by golden lights. There were no phone calls demanding I come home, no texts pressuring me or hinting, just a little favor. I climbed to the top of the Eiffel Tower at sunset, cold wind brushing my face, and I cried like I'd never truly lived before. Jenna walked up and wrapped her arm around me. You know what? I've never seen you smile this much on a trip. I turned to her, eyes red but glowing. That's because for the first time, I actually feel like me. When I returned to Ohio, I started my new job, lived in my own apartment, and arranged my time the way I wanted. Every weekend I made coffee, played jazz, cleaned my space. No interruptions, no one handing me their kid with a casual, "I just need a minute." Mom visited a few times, bringing pastries and old photos. She didn't say much, but her eyes told me everything. She was at peace. As for Samantha, she stayed gone. Mom said she was struggling now that she had to actually be a mother. Jack had started getting irritable because he lost his freedom. I listened and nodded. Not because I was glad, but because I understood. Everyone eventually pays the price for the choices they make. One Sunday night, I sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, holding a mug of hot tea. Outside, the first snow of the season was beginning to fall. I picked up my phone and scrolled through photos of Paris. Radiant smiles. Quiet little moments. I once thought I'd never get to have. Jenna texted. "Next week we're meeting at the old cafe, right? Their winter desserts are back." I replied, "Absolutely. I'm not missing it this time." I turned off the lights and closed my eyes. In my heart, there was no trace of the old burden. No one held the chain that once tied me to a responsibility that never belonged to me. I was free. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I was truly alive. My story is proof that sometimes, in order to find yourself, you have to walk away from the chains that call themselves family. I had lived far too long in a role others forced on me until I realized sacrifice doesn't mean surrender, and love doesn't mean being used. Only when I dared to draw a boundary did I finally begin to live. Not as a shadow in someone else's story, but as the main character in my own. Freedom doesn't come from permission, it comes from brave choices. What do you think about Clara's decision? Was she too harsh, or did she finally choose what was right for herself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories.
I'm Cora, 35 years old, a software engineer living in Oregon. For most of my life, I believed in the word family, so much so that I once told myself I could endure anything as long as it meant helping loved ones through tough times. But no one warned me that when you're always the one reaching out first, eventually they'll assume it's your duty. It all started 11 months ago when my younger sister, Ellie, 29, and her husband, Greg, asked to stay at my house. Greg had just lost his job, and Ellie had abruptly quit her position as an office assistant after a conflict with her boss. They said they'd only stay for a few months while saving up to put a down payment on a small condo outside Salem. I believed them. I believed in the idea that sisters show up when one is struggling. I lived alone in a 3-bedroom house that I bought after more than 10 years of relentless work and saving. One room was my home office, one for guests, and the other my bedroom. I rearranged everything to give Ellie and Greg the entire lower level. They had their own room, private bathroom, and even a side entrance that led to the backyard. I set the rent at just $600 a month, half the market rate. Enough to help with utilities, but not enough to make them feel pressured. "We just need a few months, sis," Ellie said as she rolled her suitcase in. "We'll be back on our feet soon, I swear." I smiled, hugged her tightly. "You'll have everything you need here. Just be respectful of the space, that's all I ask." At first, things seemed fine, but it didn't take long before their promises thinned out like weak coffee. Greg started freelancing, or so he said. In reality, he played video games and streamed online all day. Ellie spent most of her time scrolling TikTok, posting stories about her relaxed lifestyle, claiming she was still figuring out what kind of job aligned better with her mental health. I'd come home after 8 hours of meetings only to find dirty dishes stacked in the sink, cooking oil splattered across the counter like motor grease. My $300 blender had been taken apart and not put back together properly. Greg had burned a frozen pizza in my oven and left the place reeking of smoke. I had tried to mention things gently. "Greg, could you please rinse the blender after using it? It's a specialty model. I had to order it from San Francisco." Greg shrugged without looking up. "Cora, don't be so uptight. This is a home, not a showroom. We're family, right?" I gave a strained smile, but something inside me began to crack. Then they started inviting friends over. One night, I walked in at 10 p.m. to find 2 strangers lounging on the newly reupholstered sofa I'd paid for last month. Greg had a beer in one hand and the remote in the other. "Oh hey, you're back. We're just watching the NFL. When I asked them to limit having guests on weeknights, Ellie looked at me like I'd ruined Seriously, sis, you need to relax. Why so intense all the time? It's a home, not a corporation. You're not the CEO here. I paid to repair the HVAC system after Greg caused an electrical short installing unauthorized Bluetooth speakers. I also covered last month's utility bill, over $200, because they accidentally left the heat running 24/7 for a full week. One evening, I casually mentioned at dinner that I'd received a quarterly bonus, $4,000, for finishing a difficult project ahead of schedule. Greg laughed. Nice, maybe we'll stick around a few more months. Who needs rent when you've got a big sis like Cora footing the bill? That comment, half joking, half blunt, was the turning point for me. I realized they no longer saw me as a sister lending a hand. I had become an unlimited, unpaid sponsor. And the worst part, they had absolutely no intention of leaving. One early December evening, with the cold rain starting to fall, I left work earlier than usual. My last meeting got canceled. I stopped by the bakery near my place to pick up some sugar-dusted ginger cookies and a new bag of coffee. In my head, I had already painted the evening, a latte in hand, a cozy blanket, fireplace glowing. But as soon as I opened the door, laughter floated up from the downstairs level. Ellie's voice, Greg's, and my mom, Miranda, excitedly saying, "The chalet even has a private sauna, Ellie, and there's a ski trail that runs right through the pine forest. We really leveled up this year, didn't we?" I froze in place, still holding the paper bag. A chalet? A sauna? Skiing? I slowly stepped down the stairs and stopped at the basement living room door. Ellie was curled up on the armchair, glowing with excitement, while Greg lounged across the sofa, holding a glass of red wine, my Christmas bottle I had set aside. "Your dad already booked everything," my mom went on. "Idaho's been getting snow early this year, should be a perfect white Christmas. There's even a dog sled tour if you want to try it." I barely heard anything past Idaho. My family always went to Vermont for the holidays, a tiny, warm cabin in the woods, where we'd play board games, make hot cocoa, and argue over whose cranberry jam was better. I'd requested time off 2 months ago, turning down 3 conference invites just to be there, like every year. Idaho? I stepped into the room, keeping my voice steady. "Mom, I thought we were still going to Vermont." The room fell into a vacuum of silence. My mom placed her tea gently on the table. Ellie glanced at Greg, then at me, her expression tight, like I'd just ruined everyone's good time. "You're home early. I thought you had late meetings." I asked again, why didn't anyone tell me the plans changed? Mom gave a stiff smile. "Sweetheart, I was going to call you this weekend. The Idaho resort only got confirmed a few days ago." Greg cut in casually. Didn't we book it back in October? I remember because Ellie and I chose the room with a lake view. The cold outside felt like it had seeped through my bones. I turned to Ellie. "So, everyone knew, except me?" She shrugged, feigning innocence. "You're always busy with deadlines. I thought you'd be glad to just relax for once." I looked at Mom. "And you thought the best way to let me relax was to exclude me from the holiday? Like, Her tone sharpened. "Don't overreact, Cora. You always have to be in control. What time we eat, how the turkey's seasoned. Your dad and I just thought, maybe we try something different this year." I fought to keep my voice from shaking. Who booked the cabin for the past 8 years? Who planned the menu, the playlists, wrapped all the gifts? And this year, I don't even get an invite. Greg sighed and stood up. "Cora, honestly, you're too successful and too intense. Everyone's tired of putting on this perfect family act to fit your schedule. This year, we just want Christmas to be fun." Right then, it hit me. This wasn't some last-minute plan. They had discussed it, agreed, and chose to leave me out. Cleanly, quietly, without a shred of hesitation. I walked out without saying another word. From the kitchen, I heard Mom whisper, "She'll be fine. Cora always lands on her feet." As my bedroom door shut behind me, I set the cookie bag on the desk and sank onto the bed. My heart didn't shatter. It just emptied out. A familiar feeling I thought I had mastered, but this time felt different. I had lived for them. Built a home where Ellie could feel safe. A holiday space for mom and dad to escape to. A reason to keep calling ourselves family. And they chose to leave me behind, silently, together, without a second thought. I still remember exactly how I felt waking up the next morning. It wasn't pain or even anger, just a strange kind of clarity, like I had stepped out of a long dream I once mistook for reality. I sat up and looked around the room I used to call home. It now felt more like storage for things I didn't want to face. The kitchen calendar had December 23rd circled in red ink with a messy note. Prep cookies, order turkey, finalize Christmas playlist. I'd written that myself. Written it thinking I was helping create another perfect family holiday. For the past 2 months, I had been preparing in silence. Even bought burgundy pillow covers to match the custom table runner I ordered on Etsy. Just a week ago, I emailed Mom asking if anyone was going vegetarian this year so I could plan the menu. She replied, "I'll ask and let you know." No one followed up. And me? I kept believing things were as they always were, believing they were busy, believing I was still the heart of this family. I opened the storage closet and pulled out the bottom drawer. Carefully wrapped gifts sat in neat rows. A sweater for Mom, a green silk scarf for Ellie, her favorite color, and even that remote-controlled dinosaur Greg once joked about wanting just for display. I'd ordered it on Black Friday to make sure it arrived early enough for perfect wrapping. I touched each one, my fingers brushing against the little tags I'd handwritten. For Mom, may your back hurt less this year. For Ellie, to keep your neck warm and your head even warmer. I'd written those lines, thinking I was doing the right thing. And while I was curling ribbons and tying bows, somewhere across the state, they had booked a resort, confirmed flights, made plans, without me. I stepped into the kitchen. On the table lay a receipt from REI, almost $800 for ski gear. Shipping address, my house. Order date, October 17th. 2 months ago. The same week I took Greg to meet a friend at my tech firm to help him get a job referral. I picked up the receipt, stared at the number, and laughed. A dry, brittle sound even I barely recognized. I had been covering most of the household expenses, and they'd use that money to prepare a trip I was never meant to join. My phone buzzed, a message from Mom. "Cora, have you reconsidered? I don't want you to feel excluded, but Ellie really needs space. This trip will help her relax. I hope you'll be mature enough not to make this a big deal." I typed back. For the past 2 months, while I thought I was planning our holiday, all of you were planning yours without me. At the very least, be mature enough to admit that was intentional. I didn't send it. I deleted it. Maybe because I finally knew. I didn't need them to understand. They didn't think they did anything wrong. They thought I was just overreacting, too intense, controlling. In their minds, I wasn't a sister, a daughter, I was a holiday coordinator. And the coordinator's time was up. That night, I FaceTimed Maya, my best friend since college. She was at home in Seattle, glowing Christmas lights twinkling behind her. I didn't explain much, just said, "My family's going on a Christmas vacation without me, and they've been hiding it for 2 months." Maya didn't ask why. She simply said, "You okay?" I stayed quiet. "Do you want to come stay with us for a few days? Ethan's here. We just got a new sofa bed. Swear, it's ridiculously soft." I shook my head and smiled. "Thanks, but I think I need a few days in my own space to clean some things out, not just stuff." Maya nodded. "You know what, Cora? They lost an organizer, but you just found yourself. Worth it." I ended the call and stepped out to the balcony. Snow had started falling gently. This year there'd be no Vermont cabin, no noisy family dinners, no Greg jokes or Mom's always burnt pudding. But I knew this Christmas would be the first I spent not for them, but for me. 2 days after my conversation with Maya, Just when I thought things were clear enough for my family to quietly finish planning their Cora-free getaway, they took a step none of us saw coming. It was Saturday night. I had just wrapped up a late online meeting with a European client. The clock on my screen read 9:14 p.m. I left my desk and hadn't even changed out of my hoodie when I heard laughter echoing downstairs. I frowned. My first thought was that Greg had invited friends over for beers again without telling me, but when I came down the stairs and turned the corner into the living room, I froze. The room was packed. Twinkle lights wrapped around the windows, and a 7-foot fake tree stood lit in the corner. Silver and gold ornaments reflected candlelight across the space. Near the fireplace, a rustic wooden sign read, "Let the Colorado adventure begin." My mother was by the snack table, holding a champagne flute. My dad, Charles, was laughing with two old friends. Ellie spun in a glittery red dress, showing off a fur stole I hadn't seen before. Greg was pouring bourbon into one of my crystal glasses. For a man I'd never met. They were throwing a farewell party in my house. I wasn't invited. I wasn't even told. None of them, not Ellie, not my mother, saw anything wrong. I stood at the entrance, my hand gripping the doorframe. Slowly, eyes turned. The laughter faded. Silence swept through like a cold draft. My mom approached first, speaking in that soft tone people use with stubborn children. "Cora, I thought you were working upstairs. We'll clean everything up after, don't worry." I looked at her, then scanned the crowd. Nearly half were strangers, eating on my carpet, drinking from my glasses, standing under the roof I paid for. A farewell party? My voice was low, hoarse from swallowed rage. In my house? For a trip I was deliberately excluded from? Greg scoffed. "Don't be dramatic, Cora. We just wanted some holiday spirit. You're being a little sensitive." I clenched my fists, stepping into the room. "So it's normal to throw a send-off party in the home of the one person you purposely left out?" Ellie looked up, narrowing her eyes. "Cora, I get that you're upset, but not everything's about you. People just want to have a good night, okay?" I turned to my mom. "You're okay with this? Changing plans in secret? Keeping me in the dark, then using my house for the party?" My father said nothing. He never did when things got tense. He always chose to hide behind a glass of something. My mother sighed, her voice dipping into that familiar tone of controlled annoyance. "You're making this heavier than it needs to be. Everyone's just trying to relax. Don't ruin the evening." Then from the snack table, I heard a voice. "Aunt Angie, one of Mom's closest friends. I think Cora's being a bit much. People went to all this trouble. Can't you just be gracious?" Gracious? To the people who hijacked my home and made it a celebration of my exclusion? I didn't respond. I walked straight to the speaker and yanked the cord out. The music died instantly. Whispers started. Greg came closer, sarcasm thick in his voice. "Cora, you really want to ruin your family's party over hurt feelings? Grow up." I stared at him. "No. I'm ruining a party thrown by people who've been using me. Big difference." No one had anything to say after that. I stood in a room full of relatives and felt completely stripped, like I was in a stranger's house, not my own. Their silence said it all. They didn't believe I had the right to be angry. I was supposed to be quiet, grateful. Keep giving. I took a deep breath. "Everyone, please leave my home in the next 20 minutes. Anyone still here after that, I will call the police for trespassing. This is not a bluff." My mother blinked, stunned. "You can't be serious." "I absolutely am." I turned and walked upstairs. I didn't wait for their response. But I heard the shuffle of jackets being grabbed. Quiet mutters of, "She's gone crazy," each word settling in my chest like a stinging layer of dust. That night, I cleaned up every trace of the party. I took down the lights, gathered ribbon scraps, tossed every paper plate and crumpled napkin into trash bags. By the time I wiped up the spilled bourbon from my table, my hands were shaking. either from the cold or fury. I couldn't tell which. The next morning, I sat by the kitchen window, holding a cold cup of coffee, my eyes fixed on the wine stains still soaking into the carpet. Last night, I had stuffed all the trash from that farewell party into 3 large bags, dragged them out back, and tossed them into the bin myself. I didn't sleep, not because it was loud, but because my mind kept replaying the same ticker tape. I've let them push too far for too long. I grabbed my phone and typed a single line to Maya. I need Ethan. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. Maya didn't ask questions. She simply said, "We'll be there in an hour. Have everything ready. Today is the cleanup day." I didn't need to ask what cleanup. Ethan, Maya's boyfriend, is a real estate attorney at a law firm in Portland. He'd helped me review the paperwork when I bought this house 3 years ago, and now he was going to help me reclaim it. By the time they arrived, I had printed copies of my mortgage statements, utility bills in my name, and even scattered messages Ellie had sent me when she first moved in. Lines like, "You're a lifesaver. I promise this is just for a few months. Now, useful as evidence." Ethan reviewed everything and nodded. There is no formal lease, so Ellie and Greg are considered month-to-month tenants. Cora, you have every right to issue a notice to vacate. Under Oregon law, all it takes is 30 days' notice. "What about changing the locks?" I asked. Ethan exchanged a look with Maya before replying. "You can't change the locks while they're still residing in the home, but if you're sure they'll be out all day, you can change them in their absence and leave the necessary items and a legal notice somewhere visible. Just make sure not to hold or discard any of their belongings." Maya jumped in, her tone sharp. "They've treated your home like a free hotel for almost a year. Time to take your space back." The plan was mapped out with military precision. They were going skiing and shopping the next day. Ellie had even posted about it online. I would strike then. Maya and I divided the rooms. I handled the bedroom, she tackled the bathroom, rounding up toothbrushes, cosmetics, and spa-like clutter Ellie had spread around. Ethan drafted the official notice of termination, clearly stating the 30-day window, the move-out deadline, and how to retrieve remaining items. I placed 2 suitcases of their essentials on the front porch and covered them with a tarp in case of rain. On top, I taped the notice. Beneath it, a handwritten note from me, brief and final. "This is my home, and from today, it is no longer a place for others to abuse kindness." The locksmith arrived right on time. I had all 3 main locks changed, including the keypad on the back door. When he asked why, I replied with just one sentence. "I'm taking back control of my life." As soon as the new locks clicked into place, my phone started buzzing, non-stop. Ellie was calling. I didn't answer. Greg texted, "Have you gone crazy? We left for a few hours and you pulled this crap?" I replied with a photo of the notice and suitcases on the porch. 5 minutes later, my mom called. "Cora, what kind of nonsense is this? Ellie's pregnant. Do you even care?" I wasn't surprised. The final guilt card, family love. "I heard you, but that doesn't change the fact that this is my house, and I choose freedom." I hung up. Maya handed me a cup of hot tea, her eyes soft, but not pitying. "You just did what a lot of people don't dare to. Say enough." I stood by the window, staring at the small backyard where I once dreamed of placing a pair of Adirondack chairs to read in during retirement. Now I realized one thing. I don't need to wait for retirement to reclaim my peace. That night, I slept the deepest I had in months. No flip-flop dragging, no Greg's phone blasting music, no burnt popcorn from Ellie forgetting the microwave. Just me and silence. I had just wrapped up an online meeting when my phone started buzzing non-stop. 13 missed calls, 5 unread messages, and a stream of Facebook notifications, a platform I rarely checked. The first message was from Grace, my maternal cousin. "I can't believe what Ellie just posted. What's going on? People are saying you kicked your pregnant sister out during Christmas." I opened the app, my heart pounding. On Ellie's profile was a long post accompanied by a photo of her standing in front of my house. Fake tears in her eyes, hands clutching her belly. The bolded caption read, When your sister changes the locks and kicks you out during the holidays while you're pregnant. Below were over 300 comments, mostly from mutual friends, distant relatives, and longtime family acquaintances, all sharing the same sentiment. Can't believe Cora could be so heartless. Family is supposed to protect, not punish. She's always thought she was better than everyone. Now she's showing her true colors. I scrolled through the comments, feeling like I was being ripped apart. From the sister who raised her, I had just been redefined as a selfish, cold-hearted monster. Pregnant? No. Ellie had never said a word. Not during any of our arguments, not at the party, not while packing her things. She made it up. Greg had posted too. His was shorter, but no less toxic. Kicked out without warning. The world should know the truth behind her successful sister mask. Attached was a photo of the notice I taped on the door, conveniently cropped to hide the header and the 30-day timeline. Viewers only saw. Has terminated occupancy effective today. As if I had thrown them out instantly into the snowstorm. I shook with anger. But what choked me more was when my mother, Miranda, shared both posts and added a short caption. We didn't raise our daughter to be like this. A bullet straight to the heart. No call, no text to ask what happened. Just a public alliance with a fabricated story, publicly shaming me to protect the daughter who leeched off her sister, then betrayed her in every way. Maya called right after, her voice urgent. Cora, I saw everything. You are not to respond online, got it? No reacting, no posting. The calmer you stay, the less they can twist. But I can't let them paint me as a monster, I choked out. You don't have to argue publicly to prove you're decent. The people who care will come to you. Social media isn't a courtroom. I took a deep breath and nodded silently. An hour later, Ethan called. Cora, I've drafted the legal response in case they actually try to sue. This is classic emotional blackmail, but you followed every step by the book. Lock change while they were out, proper notice, essential belongings left accessible. It's all backed by photos. What about the pregnancy claim? I asked, voice hollow. No medical proof so far, and even if it's true, the law doesn't require you to provide free housing to a pregnant person without a lease. I slumped into my chair. The house still smelled of cinnamon candles and lemon disinfectant. Outside, a gentle rain fell. Beneath that rain, I knew Ellie's narrative was spreading, like ink on a paper towel. That evening, I got a message from Ms. Marcia, the widow next door. I often helped with trash and yard work. Cora, I saw the posts. I know you're a good person. I saw Greg loading up the car. They didn't look surprised. If you need someone to testify, I'm here. I smiled for the first time in 3 days. Maybe Maya was right. The truth doesn't have to scream to be seen. It just needs to stand firm. But I knew the fight wasn't over, and next time they might get dirtier. But this time I wasn't alone. I had Maya, Ethan, and most importantly, me. The version that doesn't stay silent anymore. I turned off my phone and unplugged the router. I needed a quiet night. 2 days after Ellie's post went viral on Facebook, I got an email from someone I never expected to hear from. Aunt Claire, my mom's youngest sister, now living in Eugene. The subject line was just one sentence. Cora, you weren't wrong. I opened it, and each word hit like fire against my chest. I saw Ellie's post, and your mother's reaction. I need you to know this isn't the first time a woman in our family was labeled as too tough, too independent, and turned into a scapegoat for someone weaker, but louder. I used to be that woman, and now I see it happening to you. I can't stay silent anymore. I read it over and over just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. I'd never been close to Aunt Claire. She lived far away, rarely came to family gatherings, usually just sent Thanksgiving cards. But now, these words touched something deep inside me, something even Maya couldn't quite reach, a shared memory of injustice, passed down through generations of women. I replied almost instantly. 10 minutes later, Claire video called me. On screen was a woman in her 60s, short silver hair, round glasses, and a backdrop full of books on psychology and family dynamics. Cora, I just need you to know you're not alone, she began. In 1987, I was kicked out of the house by your mother for refusing to be Ellie's unpaid babysitter. Know what she told me back then? Family means sacrifice, Claire. That word, sacrifice, has always been code in our family, but only for the women who earn money and dare to say no. I froze. I never heard Mom mention that. She wouldn't, Claire replied, not bitter, just coldly factual. Because in this family, if you push back, you're ungrateful. If you stay silent, you're well behaved, but you did the right thing. And doing the right thing doesn't need applause to have value. We talked for nearly an hour. Claire told me things I'd never known, how my mom often played the reasonable victim, making others feel guilty for demanding fairness. Suddenly, my entire childhood rearranged like puzzle pieces. The way Mom looked disappointed when I won a major scholarship, but Ellie failed to get into college. Her sigh when I refused to buy them a new SUV because Ellie's having a baby. The constant comments like, "You're the strong one, so you need to carry more." That afternoon, I returned to the office after nearly a week of working from home because of the family drama. As soon as I walked in, my coworker Rhonda waved me over. "Cora, come here. You need to see this." She turned her laptop toward me. It was our internal work chat. A former coworker, who had gone to college with Ellie, had posted Ellie's accusation in the company thread, along with the caption, "I can't believe someone I used to admire could act like this." The responses came quickly, but not in the way I expected. Daniel, my team lead, wrote, "I've seen Cora skip 3 company parties to go care for her mom after a fall. I've seen her stay at the office until 9 p.m. doing someone else's job without saying a word. If you think she's cold-blooded, try working with her for a quarter." Barbara, the admin assistant and unofficial team mom, followed up. "Being family doesn't give you the right to mistreat someone and call it love. Cora, if you need someone to speak for you during the staff meeting, I've got you." I was speechless. I had never felt so clearly protected. Not through tears, not through loud defenses, but through real respect from people who'd worked beside me, lived beside me. That same afternoon, I received a bouquet delivered to my desk. No sender name, just a small card. "Everyone deserves boundaries. Thank you for teaching me that. From someone who used to think you were too rigid." It was from Grace, my cousin, who had initially believed the twisted version of the story online. I smiled and placed the bouquet on my desk. In my mind, I could still hear Aunt Claire's voice. Not everyone is ready to face the broken systems they were born into, but once they do, they'll never be the same again. December 24th. Light snow dusted the porch roof. I stood by the kitchen window, hands wrapped around a mug of hot cocoa, feeling oddly at peace. This was my first Christmas in nearly 15 years not cooking for a family gathering. No stressing over planning, no last-minute run for matching napkins, no wondering if my mother would sigh again that my dish lacked traditional flavor. I had ordered a small pecan pie from my favorite bakery. Maya had sent over a box of handmade chocolates, along with a handwritten card. "This is the first year you chose yourself, and the first time I've seen you truly free." I had decided not to go home to my parents, not to reply to my mom's forced-sounding Merry Christmas text, not to listen to the usual half-hearted apologies like people make mistakes when they're too emotional. I wasn't emotional anymore. I was clear. A week earlier, Ellie had messaged me. A long paragraph, opening with, "You hurt me deeply, but I still hope one day we can be sisters again." I didn't respond. I didn't delete it either. I left it there, as a reminder. Forgiveness does not mean surrendering your boundaries. On Christmas afternoon, I wore a green sweater with silver lace trim, rewrapped 2 presents for Maya and Ethan, a cashmere scarf and a set of gold-edged notebooks. I drove to their home in the southern suburbs where their small house always glowed with warm lights and the scent of cookies floated down the block. Ethan opened the door, holding a tray of cookies. "Cora's here. We need someone who can tell real cinnamon from nutmeg." I laughed. You just insulted the palate of someone who once made a 3-layer egg mousse for a family bigger than a football team. Maya hugged me from behind. No one deserves the seat by the tree more than you this year. In that house, I wasn't the head chef, the planner, or the one holding together everyone's emotions. I was just Cora. And that was enough. Dinner was simple: garlic butter roast chicken, mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie, and barley salad. No one fought over the chicken skin. No one said dessert wasn't sweet enough. No one whispered behind my back when I got up for more water. There was just soft jazz, warm conversation, and eyes that saw me without judgment. When I got home, I saw an envelope in the mailbox from Ethan's law office. It was a copy of the formal response they'd sent to Greg's side after their legal threats. I left it on the kitchen counter beside a scented candle. I didn't feel scared anymore. Not angry, either. Just light. Light like finally dropping a too-heavy backpack after a long journey I never understood why I kept carrying. Late that night, I played instrumental music and hung up the ornament Aunt Claire had given me. My first piece in a new collection I had decided to start, Symbols of Choice. I knew life wouldn't magically become easy just because I set boundaries. Ellie might still play the victim. My mother might remain silent, or worse, keep curating the version of the story she wants people to believe. But I was no longer part of that story. I was no longer the silent sacrificer. I didn't owe anyone an explanation for choosing to protect myself. I was the one redrawing the lines, the one who stood in a house once filled with laughter but empty of love. The one who changed the locks, not to shut people out, but to hold on to myself. Tomorrow, I'll finally rearrange my office, turn it into the creative space I've been putting off. I ordered a new wooden desk, wall mount shelves, and a canvas painting I did last year, a bird soaring against a gray sky, free and unbothered by direction. Maybe that's the image I'll carry into the new year. And if one day Ellie truly wants to rebuild our relationship, she'll have to walk through a door opened by respect, not guilt. As for me, I won't be waiting. I'm busy living my own life, for the first time, not following anyone else's script. Cora's story is a powerful reminder that kindness should never be treated as an obligation, and sacrifice doesn't mean giving without limits. In real life, far too many people, especially women, are expected to endure for the sake of family. But when compassion is exploited, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. Because sometimes finding real peace means choosing yourself, even if it means walking away from those who share your blood. What do you think about Cora's decision? Was she being too harsh, or was she simply protecting herself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories about family, boundaries, and self-worth.
Has anyone ever received a gift that made you feel like a joke? I have. On Christmas Eve, right in front of the entire family, while others were unwrapping plane tickets to Paris, I was holding a neon orange book with a title that made me freeze. How to Grow Up for the Perpetually Immature. This wasn't some cute self-help book. It was the kind of mass-printed handout you'd find at corporate HR trainings, meant to gently shame you. The cover showed a cartoon woman in animal print pajamas, holding a popsicle, surrounded by unpaid bills. The subtitle was even worse. Escaping the adult body with a child's mind. I smiled. That kind of smile you use to hold back tears. That was my 32nd Christmas, and the 32nd year of playing the invisible member of the Taylor family. While I sat quietly in the corner, careful not to spill my cheap wine, my perfect older sister Cassandra was glowing by the Christmas tree, opening an ivory envelope embossed with an airline logo. "Rome?" Cassandra gasped, eyes sparkling like she'd just won the lottery. "We thought you could use more international experience for your career," my dad said, beaming with pride like he was introducing a keynote speaker at the U. "To expand your global network," my mom chimed in, talk show host style. Then she turned to me and held up the book. "And you," she said, "I thought this would help you grow." I nodded. I said nothing. Not because I agreed, but because I knew if I opened my mouth, even just once, I'd break down. Cassandra was always the star. Ivy League degrees, fluent in Italian, internships in Brussels. Me? I'm a preschool teacher in Milwaukee. I can make shadow puppets and turn construction paper into a unicorn in under 30 seconds. But to them, Cassandra is the future. And I'm just the sweet one who bakes cookies for kids. Last year, Cassandra got a MacBook Pro for research. I got a dry erase weekly planner for the wall. After presents, we had a potluck dinner. I brought homemade herb-roasted chicken that I had cooked that morning. Cassandra brought canned cranberry sauce. Guess which one got the praise? "Oh my goodness, this sauce is amazing," my dad exclaimed. "Did you make it, Cassandra?" "No, I just opened the can," she replied. "Practical as always," he chuckled, patting her shoulder like he'd just discovered the most admirable quality in the world. I nearly choked on my chicken. After dinner, I automatically got up to clean. No one offered to help. My mom handed me a garbage bag, smiling as she did. "You're always so good at this. I really admire how you're not above doing the little things." I didn't respond. I wanted to ask what she thought about keeping 28 kids safe every day, about managing a marker crisis during lunch, or teaching toddlers how to say sorry and wait their turn. But I didn't ask. Because I already knew the answer. To them, I was never a real adult. I was Ruby, the sweet, compliant, kind younger sister. The unpaid weekend babysitter, the one who watches Elodie every Saturday so Cassandra can go to Pilates. I was the helper. The shadow. That night, I sat in my tiny upstairs apartment above the laundromat. Snow was falling outside. The only sound in the room was Elodie's laughter replaying in my head. When I gave her the reindeer sock puppet I made. That laugh echoed longer than any holiday wish. Then I looked at the How to Grow Up book on the table. They gave it to me like a cleverly disguised jab. But this time, I wasn't swallowing it. Maybe they were right. Not in the way they intended, not to grow up and please them, but to grow up and realize I deserve respect. The next morning, while I was still picking bits of glitter off my floor, my phone buzzed nonstop. 3 missed calls from Cassandra, 1 text from Mom. "Can you help your sister real quick? Elodie's off school today and she has an important Zoom meeting." I was about to set the phone down when another message popped up. "You're not busy, right?" Not busy. The words hit me like a dull blade. They always assumed my time was disposable, free, insignificant. In reality, I had planned my whole week to finalize lesson materials for our winter-themed project, an initiative I proposed, approved by the principal, and highly anticipated by the kids. But I knew if I said no, all eyes would be on me like I'd just refused to save a drowning child. I showed up at Cassandra's house at 10 a.m. Elodie ran out, arms covered in paint and cookie dough. "Fairy Aunt Ruby," she squealed, waving the magic wand I gave her last month. Cassandra, in heels and a pale gray suit with her hair in a perfect bun, said, "Oh good, you're here. I've got to jump into a meeting just about 2 hours." I nodded. Like always. 2 hours became 4. After lunch, Cassandra peeked out of her office, phone still pressed to her ear, motioned 1 sec, and went right back in. "No thank you." When Marcus, her husband, came home, he gave me a quick glance and asked, "She's staying for dinner?" I stood there, one arm holding Elodie, the other wiping her mouth, and for the first time in months, my face burned. "No," I said, "I'm heading out." But just a bit of help didn't stop there. The next week was Marcus's birthday. Cassandra asked me to babysit so they could go out for a date night. Then Saturday came, with a leadership seminar. Then Monday because school was closed. Tuesday because the babysitter canceled. Wednesday because Marcus had a meeting. Slowly, a bit of help became a full-time unpaid schedule. I started turning down extra teaching hours because Elodie's schedule was unpredictable. I skipped friends' birthday parties. I even canceled an interview for a curriculum development specialist role, a job I truly wanted, because Cassandra called that morning and said, "Elodie's throwing up and..." I just can't leave her alone. There was never an apology. Never a thank you dinner. Never even gas money. My mom? She'd always say with a righteous tone. You're the aunt, the family. The aunt should sacrifice first, right? My dad would add, it's not like you have a family of your own. What's the rush? A rush? I wanted to scream. I'm not a wall clock for you to schedule at your convenience. One time I got home nearly 3 hours late because Cassandra forgot to tell me she and Marcus were stopping by a friend's for wine. Elodie fell asleep on my lap around 9 p.m., whispering, "Don't go anywhere, Aunt Ruby." I held her, my eyes stinging. I endured this because I loved her. But that love, the way they twisted it, had turned me into a glitter-wearing babysitter called Fairy Aunt. I don't hate Elodie. I love that little girl with all my heart. But I hate how my love was drained to serve others. I hate the way I had to hide my own disappointment when my mom told the neighbors. Cassandra is the star of our family. And Ruby? Well, she does cute stuff with kids. I hated the way Marcus texted me at 11 p.m. Can you come early tomorrow? Your sister has a spa appointment. A spa? I hadn't even washed my hair in 3 days. My entire world had shrunk to 2 words, can, and available. No one ever asked me what I wanted or needed. That night, after putting Elodie to bed, I stood in Cassandra's kitchen, wiping the dining table, staring at my reflection in the stainless steel microwave. I asked myself, whose life am I living? Back then, I didn't know the answer would begin with one email, one conversation, and my very first no. The book was still there, on the desk by the window, where the streetlight shone through the sheer curtains, lighting up the blaring words, "Growing up means stopping childish behavior." I'd stared at it for 3 nights straight. As if its tacky cover was daring me. What are you waiting for? Then, on the 4th night, I opened my laptop. I didn't write anything bitter, no accusations, no sarcasm. I just wrote exactly what I meant, for the first time in a long time. A message to Cassandra. Starting this new year, I won't be watching Elodie on weekends anymore. I love her dearly, but I also need time for my own life and work. I can't keep pushing aside all my plans just to fill in for other adults. I hope you understand. I sat still after hitting send. My heart was pounding, but a strange feeling crept in. Relief. The second message, to Mom and Dad. Thank you for the Christmas gift. It really made me think. I'll be stopping all financial support for Cassandra, from tuition to plane tickets to emergency expenses. I need to focus on my own future now. I hope you'll respect this choice. No justifications, no guilt. Just truth simple and firm. I didn't have to wait long. At 7 a.m. the next morning, my phone lit up non-stop. 6 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad. 1 group message titled, "Loving Family," that read, "Ruby, what is this? I'm truly shocked. What are you doing?" I didn't reply. I made coffee, sat at my desk, put on some instrumental music, and began prepping materials for my weekend storytelling lesson. Meanwhile, my phone kept buzzing, like it was whispering, "You're causing trouble." By noon, Cassandra texted, "No greeting. You can't just stop in the middle like this. I have a deadline. Elodie needs you. You're the only one she'll eat porridge from." I replied simply, "I know, but you're her mom. You'll figure it out." Then came a silence, about 40 minutes long, the longest I'd ever experienced after turning down a request from family. But the real storm followed. Mom called again. This time, I picked up. Her voice hit me sharp, cold and disappointed. "Ruby, I don't understand. You've never been like this. This isn't you." I interrupted her, calmly but firmly. "Maybe I've never been like this because I was never allowed to be." "Allowed to be what?" she snapped. "To live my own life, without feeling like I'm being ungrateful." That afternoon I came home early, played the voice message Mom had sent after the call. Her voice trembled. "This family has always needed each other, you know that. Saying no is selfish. Family doesn't turn its back like this. I repeated her words in my mind. Family doesn't turn its back. But does family have the right to treat one child like a shadow, burden them with expectations, and erase their worth, just because they didn't follow the mold? I remembered clearly the day Cassandra first went to Brussels. She cried because she was short $900 for the visa fee. I withdrew the money from my car savings and transferred it without hesitation. When she gave birth to Elodie, I cancelled 3 months of puppet show contracts to help her. When Marcus had his pay cut, I sent money for baby formula, even though I was paying off credit card debt. And now, just for saying no once, I was branded a traitor. That night, I sat by the window, watching thick snow fall outside. Elodie wouldn't be with me that weekend. No laughter, no fairy Aunt Ruby turned sandwiches into flowers game. The room was quiet, the cold crept through the window gap. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was spiraling through a tornado of duty and guilt. I placed the How to Grow Up book back on the shelf. Not to throw it away. Not to keep it as a bitter reminder. I left it there as a message to myself. Growing up isn't abandoning yourself to please others. It's learning to set boundaries and honoring them. You've changed. You're not that sweet daughter who always puts family first anymore. That was the first line in the email Mom sent a week after I set my boundary. No, are you okay? No checking in. Just a list of accusations typed in Times New Roman, as if she was writing a complaint letter instead of talking to her daughter. At the bottom, a plea for me to reflect, ending with, "Don't let the family down by choosing to live so coldly." Cold. The word repeated like a dull knife. Every reread stung. I once saw myself as kind, approachable, always ready to help, but apparently the moment I said no, all of that vanished. I wasn't surprised that Cassandra didn't text for almost 2 weeks. She was a master of the silent treatment. A classic move in our family. If you didn't do what they wanted, they'd make you feel like you betrayed the entire bloodline. By week 3, she sent just one line. "Mom, cried all night because of you." I sat on the couch, holding a mug of lukewarm tea, and quietly exhaled. No one had asked why I made that decision. No one mentioned how I felt. No one acknowledged the countless evenings I gave up, the weekends stolen, or the money I wired without ever asking for a cent back. I hadn't turned cold. I had just stopped sacrificing myself for validation that never came. That whole month, I didn't go to Cassandra's. Didn't watch Elodie. Skipped Sunday dinners. Every time I checked my phone, there was another message from Mom, ranging from concern to anger to guilt, tripping. Family is about love, not conditions. You're isolating yourself. We miss you, but your behavior is hurting everyone. Not a single line said, "You did the right thing by giving so much without asking for anything." At school, I still taught with passion and patience. The kids had no idea about the silent battles I was fighting at home. To them, I was still Miss Ruby, the teacher with glittery shoes, and a different voice for every story character. One day, while helping Mia, a teary-eyed 4-year-old, color in a pumpkin with an orange crayon, she looked up and asked, "Miss Ruby, are you sad?" I froze. "Why do you ask that?" "Because you're not smiling with your eyes today." I smiled. This time, it was real. Just a little. Kids see what adults never notice. That night, I went home and pulled out an old notebook I used to write down secret wishes. The first page, written in purple ink, read, "One day, I'll live a life where I don't need anyone's permission." I had forgotten that line for years, now it came back to life. That weekend, I got an invite from Lily, a close coworker, to see an interactive art exhibit for children. I said yes immediately. I didn't have to check a babysitting schedule or wait to see if Mom would call me to come clean her house. When I posted a photo on Instagram of myself standing beside a bright, hand-painted wall, the caption was simple: "A day of true freedom." That same night I got a text from Dad. "Disappointed that you had time to go out? but not stop by to see your mom? When I didn't reply. I was tired of having to justify living my own life. On Sunday, I stopped by the used bookstore on the corner. While reading the back cover of a book about emotional boundaries, a woman around my age came up to me. "Excuse me, are you Ruby, the one who hosted Emily's birthday party?" I looked up, surprised. "She keeps talking about you. That was her happiest day of the year." I smiled. This time it was full and light. As I left the bookstore, a new message popped up from Cassandra. "Mom and Dad say you're avoiding us, but you're not avoiding, Ruby. You're becoming cold. Truly." I stood on the sidewalk, the winter air stinging my face. I typed back. "I'm not trying to be cold. I just don't want to live in the loop you and Mom and Dad created. I'm not disappearing. I just want a life of my own." I hit send. A minute passed. No reply. I slipped my phone into my coat pocket and kept walking, my steps lighter than ever. I knew I wasn't invited the moment I saw the first photo on Facebook. Cassandra had posted it Saturday morning, the exact day of Elodie's 3rd birthday. In the photo, Elodie stood on the backyard grass in a pale pink dress, in front of a 3-tier pastel cake that looked like it came straight out of a magazine. Cassandra and Marcus posed next to her like a wedding portrait. Behind them were balloon arrangements shaped into the number 3, with golden letters spelling ELODIE. No one tagged me. No invitation. No text in advance. No sign that I, the one who once stayed up all night making paper flower garlands for her 1st birthday, was still part of the family picture. I sat still for a long time. The water bottle on the table had gone completely warm. I wasn't jealous. I was hurt. Not because I wasn't invited, but because Elodie might think I had forgotten her. I couldn't let that happen. That afternoon, I dug through old supply boxes in the closet. Birthday decorations, color palettes, glitter pens, old wands, and the sparkly dresses she used to wear to play fairy. I messaged 2 friends who worked at the community center, the one that had hosted the charity event with me last year. They agreed to let me use a small room on Sunday, no charge. I called a few parents, those who had once asked me to organize their kids' birthday parties, and said, "I'm planning a surprise party for Elodie. Nothing loud, just an afternoon of balloons, glitter and love." Everyone said yes, some even offered to bring a cake. On Sunday morning, I started setting up at 7 a.m. The little room was filled with purple, gold and teal. I hung up the triangle flags Elodie had painted last year during her Dreams art class. One side had a bright, colorful candy table, the other a magic workshop, where the kids made their own wands with wooden sticks and ribbons. As expected, in the center of the room, I set up a tiny puppet stage, and of course, I brought the sparkly fairy wings Elodie always called her magic costume. Elodie arrived at 10 a.m. with her new babysitter, a senior psychology student who had helped me in class before. She squealed the moment she saw me. "Fairy Aunt Ruby." I hugged her tight, swallowing the lump in my throat. The party was chaotic and joyful in the most genuine way. Elodie made a wand with 3 shades of glitter. She decorated cupcakes with sprinkles and marshmallows. When I performed with Sir Sparkle, the talking dragon puppet, she laughed so hard she cried. There was no professional photographer. No branded balloon arches. No edited filters. Just laughter, hugs, and a glowing little girl who lit up the whole room. When the party ended, Elodie ran to hug me, frosting on her cheeks and glitter still stuck to her sweater. "Aunt Ruby is a real fairy. This is the best birthday ever." I didn't cry, I just smiled and said, "That's because you brought the magic, Elodie." I thought it would end there. I was wrong. 3 days later, I got a message from Mom. "Elodie cried all night. What did you do to make her tell her teacher that Mom's party was boring?" Before I could respond, Cassandra texted. "Elodie told everyone the real party was with Ruby, and that my party was just adults and bad cake. You think that's okay?" Then came a voice message from Dad. "You need to stop this now. The way you're acting is unacceptable. Don't turn that little girl into a tool to attack her mother." I sat there in silence. I had never spoken badly about anyone. I never used Elodie as a tactic. I simply threw a party because she deserved a joyful memory. Without pressure, without pretense. I replied to Cassandra with a short message. You didn't invite me. I didn't crash your party. Elodie is just being honest, like any 3-year-old would. If that hurts, maybe the question should be for yourself, not me. That night, I turned off all social media notifications. No comments, no replies, no voicemails. I just sat there, sipping peppermint tea, replaying the image of Elodie waving her wand and shouting, "Poof, turn all the sad people into happy ones." I didn't need anything more than that. It all began with a vague message from Cassandra, sent at 8 a.m. on Monday. Right as I was walking into class, helping the kids glue cotton snowflakes. "We need to talk, seriously. Someone said you took Elodie out of school without permission." I read that message 3 times. The words were cold as steel, no greeting, no clarity. But the intention was clear. She was implying I had kidnapped my own niece. An hour later, the principal called me into her office. She showed me a printed, anonymous email, sent from a hidden account, asking whether a staff member had taken a child off school premises without written consent from the biological parent. I sat in stunned silence. No need to ask where that email came from. And no need to guess that this wouldn't stop, unless I did something. That afternoon I went home, pulled my external hard drive from the drawer, and connected it to my laptop. I got to work like I was prepping for trial. I reopened all the texts between Cassandra and me, including the conversation before the party. Just something simple, like last year, nothing fancy. "I'll drop Elodie off at 10, we have lunch plans. Also, if you need to book a space, let me know. Pick whatever feels comfortable." I saved the receipt from the community hall reservation, my name, date, time, and payment. I screenshot the babysitter's message, where she confirmed. Cassandra asked me to bring her right on time. She said Aunt Ruby is the most trustworthy person. I compiled all that into a folder, named it The Truth. That night, I wrote a short but firm email addressed directly to Cassandra, CCing my mother. Because I knew they always operated as a unit. Subject: regarding recent false claims. Body: Hi Cassandra. I was just made aware that someone is spreading the idea that I took Elodie without parental consent. To avoid misunderstanding or any misguided legal action, I'm including the following. Our full text thread prior to the party. Messages confirming time, location, and consent. Receipt for the community hall rental under my name. Message from the babysitter you entrusted with Elodie. I hope this makes it clear that everything happened with explicit, documented consent. If anyone continues making false claims or contacts my workplace to harm my reputation, I will involve my attorney to protect both my name and my job. I love Elodie, but I will not let others use that love to target me. Sincerely, Ruby. I read the email twice, then hit send. No shaking, no fear. Just the cold calm of a woman who's exhausted from being cast as the good sister, the agreeable daughter, the silent fairy. A day passed. No reply. On day 2 my mother called. I didn't answer. On day 3 Cassandra texted. I didn't think you'd take it this far. I didn't reply. I just took a screenshot and saved it in the truth folder. But they weren't done. A relative from Dad's side, Aunt Helen, called and asked with a suggestive tone, "Are you okay? I heard there's some legal trouble." Then a former classmate of mine, now working in HR at an elementary school nearby, messaged, "Heard something about a kid? Is it true?" I knew it clearly. Cassandra and my mother were quietly weaving a story. That I, a teacher with emotional issues, was jealous of my sister, and using my niece as a tool to gain attention. I didn't fight back by arguing. I didn't go online to expose them. I didn't call a family meeting to defend myself. I sent all the evidence to my lawyer friend, the one who'd helped me resolve a lease dispute before. After reading it, he said just one thing. "You handled this perfectly. If they push further, I'll walk into court with you." That weekend, I hosted an art workshop for autistic children at the public library. When Elodie saw me, she come with Marcus's mom. She ran over and hugged me tight, shouting, "My fairy is here." I sat down with her and we painted a winged cat in green and orange. The whole time, I didn't think about Cassandra. I didn't think about the accusation. I just focused on that little hand holding mine. I knew I had done the right thing. Then came a strange silence. After the storm of subtle attacks, suggestive words, and veiled blame, suddenly, nothing. No texts. No calls. No guilt-tripping emails. No one asking if I was free to watch Elodie for a bit. My mother vanished from my life like a slammed door no one bothered to lock again. Cassandra maintained her weaponized silence, her deadliest move. I didn't reach out. I didn't wait for them to come back. Because for the first time in years, I no longer needed to prove I was the good one in their carefully curated narrative. A few days later, I received a private message from Rebecca, Cassandra's college best friend, whom I'd only met twice in my life. "I know it's not my place, but the way they're talking about you, it's not okay. If you ever need someone to back up the truth, I'm here." I sat quietly for a few minutes, gripping my phone, heart racing for reasons I couldn't explain. Not from anger, but because for the first time, someone outside my family saw me. Not through Cassandra's lens. Not through my mother's twisted words. Then came Sarah, a single mom who had hired me to organize her son's birthday last year. "I just saw pictures from Elodie's party. The kids look genuinely happy. Are you still taking bookings? I'm planning something for next month." Within a week, I received 3 more requests, from people I'd never met. They said they heard about me through Aunt Ruby's magic party. They didn't need me to wear a blazer or have an MBA. They just wanted someone who could create a space where kids could laugh, play, and be themselves. I started working every weekend. Not as a wary, silent babysitter anymore, but as the host of small, cozy, colorful events, where I used puppets to tell stories, painted little faces, and taught kids how to make foil crowns. I brought on a part-time assistant, Maya, a sophomore majoring in special education. She could twist a balloon into a unicorn in under a minute. "You're a legend among the moms in my neighborhood," Maya grinned, sliding over a box of craft paper. "I thought you were a made-up character." I laughed out loud, a real laugh, not forced, not guarded. One afternoon, I got a call from Uncle Frank, one of the few relatives on Dad's side who still kept in touch. "Kiddo," he said in his warm, gravelly voice, "I saw your mom's Facebook post, and I didn't like the way she hinted about a selfish family member tearing us apart. I know she meant you." I stayed silent. "But you know what?" he continued. "At my age, I've learned this. Some people only feel right when they have someone to blame. Don't let yourself be their shadow." I choked up, not because his words were harsh, but because he said what I had wished for years to hear from my own father. That night I posted a photo, just a small table covered with a white cloth, some birthday cards being handwritten, a tray of star-shaped cookies, and a box of crayons. No caption. No hints. No bitterness. Just a moment of peace, and mine. A week later, I received an invitation to speak at an early education workshop at the city's central library. The organizers said they'd heard about me through the community parties I hosted and were impressed with how I wove emotional learning into children's activities. I read the email 3 times, and then I smiled. Not because of recognition. Not because of accolades. But because finally I was being seen, not by blood, but by people who recognized my true worth. I knew my mom still believed I was overreacting. I knew Cassandra still told relatives I was immature, theatrical, and not serious about life. But I also knew, more clearly than ever, I didn't need an apology to keep living true to myself. As I sat planning 3 new parties for the upcoming month, Maya handed me a brand new jar of glitter. "I thought you'd like this one," she said. "Shinier, longer lasting." I took it, watched the sparkling bits swirl inside and thought to myself, shiny, resilient, not easily erased. Just like me now. 3 years later, I stood in front of the mirror in my new workspace. A small, vibrant studio on the second floor of a red brick building near the Central Park. Sunlight poured through the large window, casting warm light on a hand-painted mural of children wearing paper crowns and holding glittery magic wands. On my desk was a calendar booked solid for the next 8 weeks. In the left corner stood shelves full of markers, glitter, and ribbon. In the center of the wall, a whiteboard read, "No one has the right to dim your light. Not even family." My work wasn't just about birthday parties anymore. I ran a creative learning program for children aged 3 to 7. Every weekend I held Unicorn Club, where kids learned through games, storytelling, crafts, and yes, pretending to be talking dragons. Parents called me Ruby the Magic Maker. Kids called me Miss Ruby with the magic glitter. And I called this work freedom. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. But I was living true to myself. No longer existing to soothe someone else's ego, or play supporting roles in someone else's spotlight. I chose my own light, even if it was small, it was real. Elodie is 6 now. Every time she visits, she runs into my arms and asks the same question. "Auntie Fairy Ruby, who are we pretending to be today?" Once, it was the Donut Queen. Another time, a spy who turns into a cat. Once, she looked at me and said, "You're a grown-up, but not boring, you laugh with your whole belly." I laughed the rest of that day. Cassandra is no longer the perfect older sister she once was. After I stopped supporting her financially, she had to work, actually work. No more expensive classes in Europe. No more strategy seminars that were really spa getaways. She took a modest administrative job at a nonprofit focused on community development. Stable, humble, and for the first time, real. I didn't say anything when I heard. I just nodded, thinking, everyone has their own journey. Some grow through advice. Some grow through loss. One day, Cassandra sent me a video. Elodie, in a purple fairy dress, was dancing in the living room singing loudly. "Aunt Ruby says I'm a little light, and I'll never go out." At the end of the clip, Cassandra's voice whispered over the background. "Thank you." I didn't understand then. I didn't reply right away. I let the message sit on my phone for a few days. Not because I was still angry, but because I'm learning how to forgive without forgetting. My relationship with my parents still has distance. They never apologized. They still send messages like, "If only our family could be like before." Cassandra really has tried. Don't be too hard on her. I don't react anymore. I don't need them to fully understand me. It's enough that I no longer suffocate myself to please them. One autumn afternoon, while packing supplies for my Bubble Kingdom workshop, I found the old book they once gave me, How to Grow Up. I flipped through a few pages. Still the same tired lines. Real adults don't eat cake with their hands. I laughed out loud. I eat cake with my hands nearly every week, alongside Elodie and kids with frosting on their noses. And I've never felt more grown up. Because growing up isn't trading sneakers for high heels. It's not quitting coloring or tossing out glitter. And it's definitely not saying yes to every demand just because you're family. Growing up is knowing when to say enough. It's understanding that your boundaries deserve respect. It's choosing to live your own life, even when others don't approve. Now my calendar is fully booked for the next 2 months. I have a list of new creative classes ready to launch. I have kids' scribbled drawings taped all over my studio walls. I have an assistant who makes dinosaur-shaped balloons and teases me with glitter. I have a niece who calls me Magic Aunt Ruby whenever she needs someone to believe in the impossible. And above all, I have myself, whole, unburdened, no longer asking for permission. I don't know if I've gone too far. All I know is this. This life finally belongs to me. Ruby's story is a powerful reminder that kindness does not mean surrender. In a world where family expectations can become invisible chains, standing up, setting boundaries and protecting your worth is a bold act of maturity. Ruby didn't seek revenge. She didn't try to hurt anyone. She simply chose to live authentically. And that choice opened a life far more fulfilling than any false approval could ever offer. Growing up sometimes begins with the courage to say, enough. What do you think about Ruby's journey? Have you ever felt dismissed just because you didn't live up to someone else's expectations? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories to come. On Christmas morning, bright laughter rang out from the front yard, shattering the silence of a cold winter morning. I stood by the kitchen window, gripping a cup of coffee that had gone cold without me realizing it. Through the frost-covered glass, I saw my parents beaming, as if they had just made someone's dream come true. But not mine. In the middle of the yard, my sister Sophie screamed with excitement at the sight of a sleek, forest green Jeep Wrangler parked right in front of the house. A massive silver bow stretched across the roof. A bold declaration of favoritism my parents never even bothered to hide. "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" Sophie jumped up and down, throwing her arms around our parents. Thank you, I love you both so much." My mother smiled with satisfaction. "We knew you'd love it. You deserve this gift." I held my breath. Deserve? I glanced down at the table. In front of me sat a simple Christmas card. Next to it, a pitifully thin envelope. Inside was a check for $25, the same amount my parents typically stuffed into an envelope for the holiday delivery guys. What had I expected? My father finally looked up, noticing I hadn't come outside. "Anna? Why don't you come out and see Sophie's gift?" I took a deep breath, swallowing the anger rising in my chest. I didn't want to cause a scene. Didn't want to become the selfish child my mother always accused me of being whenever I reacted to the blatant unfairness. "I'm drinking my coffee, Dad." My mother sighed. "Shouldn't you be happy for your sister? This is a special moment, Anna." "What about me?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Silence stretched for a few seconds before my father laughed, as if I had just said the most ridiculous thing in the world. You don't need a car. You don't even go anywhere." Cold. Not the winter cold from outside, but something deeper, cutting straight to my core. They were right. I didn't have a car. I had poured every penny of my savings into culinary school, something they never supported. They called it a waste of time while funneling money into Sophie's business administration degree, an interest she barely even pretended to have. I watched as she cruised through life effortlessly, while I had to fight every day just to prove that my passion was worth something. But I wasn't trying to prove anything to them anymore. I turned away, my eyes landing on the stack of scratch-off lottery tickets I had bought as Christmas gifts for everyone. Tickets they hadn't even bothered to open. Just a small gesture, the only thing I could afford, after sinking everything into my dreams. And then, as if fate had a cruel sense of humor, I scratched one. 3 matching numbers. I blinked, my heart pounding as I checked again. I couldn't believe it. $800,000? I looked outside, where Sophie had just started the Jeep's engine, my parents clapping proudly. Not one of them noticed I wasn't there. Not one of them cared. So why should I? I clutched the ticket in my hand. I knew exactly what I was going to do with this money. I stared at the winning ticket, my heart beat so loud it felt like the entire kitchen could hear it. $800,000. My fingers traced over the matching numbers again and again, verifying them, making sure I wasn't imagining things. Outside the window, the Jeep's engine roared as Sophie revved it, my parents' delighted laughter filling the crisp morning air. And me? All I had was a cheap Christmas card and a check worth as much as a fast food meal. What would happen if they knew? I already knew the answer. I could picture my mother snatching the ticket from my hands, my father chuckling, telling me I was too immature to manage that kind of money. Then, it would disappear into some account under their name, or worse, be invested into Sophie's future. The Jeep would only be the beginning. Anger flared inside me, hot and unrelenting like the fire burning in the kitchen oven. No, not this time. I folded the ticket carefully and slipped it into the back pocket of my jeans. Just then the kitchen door swung open. Anna, Dad's calling you. Sophie popped her head in, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Come on, we're taking a family picture. What are you waiting for? I looked at her, dressed in a brand new fur-lined coat, expensive boots and a carefree smile. I didn't hate Sophie. Not entirely. But I hated the way she was always first in line. The way I had spent my entire life standing on the sidelines of my own story. Family? The word tasted bitter in my mouth. I'm not in the mood, I said, my voice as hard as stone. Sophie raised an eyebrow. Why are you always like this? Can't you just be happy for me for once? I let out a laugh, but there was no humor in it. And what about me, Sophie? Have Mom and Dad ever bought me anything? Her mouth fell open, but I didn't wait for an answer. I brushed past her, heading straight to my room, ignoring my mother's disapproving voice calling after me from the yard. 3 a.m. I sat on the edge of my bed, the room swallowed in darkness, the only light coming from my phone screen. I had spent the entire night researching. Tuition at the Culinary Institute of New York, the school I had dreamed of attending, was about $60,000 a year. The lottery money wouldn't cover all of it, but it would give me a foundation. I could apply for scholarships, pick up extra jobs. I could leave this place. I imagined my new life. A small apartment in the city, busy days in the kitchen, the scent of melting butter and sizzling garlic, late nights working through new recipes. A life I built for myself, no longer begging for anyone's approval. I pulled my suitcase out from under the bed and started packing. With every item I placed inside, I felt lighter. My kitchen tools. The knife set I had saved up for. My notebook filled with self-crafted recipes. The cast iron pan I treasured most. I took the lottery ticket from my back pocket, looked at it one more time, then tucked it safely into my wallet. My ticket to a new life. I scribbled a note and left it on the desk. Mom, Dad, I need space. Don't look for me. Enough. No explanations, no apologies. Morning. I dragged my suitcase down the stairs, my heart hammering, afraid someone would wake up. But no one did. The house was silent, still drowning in the aftermath of their celebrations. As I passed through the living room, my eyes landed on the pile of unopened Christmas gifts scattered across the floor. Shiny wrapping paper, glittering ribbons, all for Sophie. Nearby, the stack of lottery tickets I had given my family remained untouched, not even scratched. I stared at them for a long moment before letting out a soft chuckle. A hollow laugh, void of sadness. I opened the door and stepped outside. The icy winter air filled my lungs. But I didn't feel cold anymore. I felt free. The wheels of my suitcase rolled over the pavement, each thud against the sidewalk reminding me that this wasn't a dream. I had left that house. No looking back. I pulled my coat tighter around me as I stopped in front of an old brick building, nestled in the middle of a bustling street. Bangkok Bites. The neon sign flickered under the worn wooden awning, and the rich scent of spices drifted from inside. It wasn't a luxury apartment complex, but the small unit on the second floor would be my fresh start. I stepped into the entryway, holding the key I had just picked up from the landlord. The apartment was a single open space, a tiny kitchen tucked in the corner, a mattress placed by the window. Minimal, but mine. I sank onto the mattress, my breath steadying. Then, my phone buzzed. Mom. I stared at the screen. A string of missed calls, one after another. Then a message. Anna, where are you? What the hell are you doing? Call me back now. I turned off my phone. I didn't owe them an explanation anymore. 3 days later. I stood in the kitchen of Bangkok Bites, sleeves rolled up, facing a tall, lean man with salt and pepper hair tied neatly at the back. Marco, the head chef of the restaurant. The man I had met the day I moved in. You know how to handle a knife? His deep voice carried a hint of amusement. I picked up the knife on the counter, flipping it lightly in my hand before slicing through a bundle of scallions, each cut precise and even. Marco raised an eyebrow. Not bad. But chopping onions doesn't mean you can cook. I shrugged. Then I guess I need someone to find out. He let out a quiet chuckle and tossed me an apron. All right, you'll help me in the kitchen tonight. If you don't burn the pots, I'll let you try more. That night, I touched the flames of the kitchen for the first time as a real chef. Water simmered in the pot, the sharp sting of chili rising in the air, making my eyes burn slightly. Beside me, Marco didn't speak much. Just short gestures, forcing me to watch and learn quickly. Taste, he said, handing me a spoonful of broth. I took a sip. Rich, but missing something. Lime, I said firmly. Marco nodded, dropping in a fresh lime wedge before giving me a knowing look. Cooking is like life, Anna. If it's bland, you have to know how to add your own seasoning. I stayed silent, but his words settled deep in my mind. Week 2. I was getting used to my new routine. Mornings at culinary school, nights working in the kitchen, late nights studying recipes. I had no time to think about the past, and I liked it that way. But my family wouldn't leave me alone. The messages kept coming. My mom, my dad, and sometimes even Sophie. You can't just leave like this, there's still so much housework to do. If you keep this up, Dad won't send you money anymore. Stop this nonsense. Please come home, Anna, I'll let you ride in my car. I didn't respond. But I couldn't ignore the hollow feeling growing inside me. One night, after closing the kitchen, I sat with Marco in the empty restaurant. He was sipping tea, gazing out the window in silence. How are you always so calm? I asked. He shrugged. I used to think anger made me stronger, but all it did was drain me. You can run from your family, but if you let them haunt you, you're still their prisoner. I glanced at my phone, at the dozens of unread messages. When I didn't want to be a prisoner anymore, I powered off my phone and tucked it into my pocket. I had a new life to live. And I wouldn't let anyone stop me. One evening, as I rushed through the kitchen preparing for the dinner rush, the restaurant door swung open. A gust of cold air swept in, mixing with the warm aroma of spices. I didn't need to turn around to know who had just walked in. Well, well. Anna Hawkins. That voice pulled me back to the past. To high school cooking competitions, where Amelia Carter had once been both my rival and my friend, but those days were long gone. I turned, gripping my knife tightly. Amelia. She stood there, looking like a perfectly painted portrait. Blonde hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, a designer coat hugging her slender frame. Her lips curled, but the smile never reached her eyes. I heard you're working as a kitchen assistant here, she said, glancing around Bangkok Bites with thinly veiled disdain. How unexpected. I wiped my hands on my apron and stepped toward her, slow and steady. If you have something to say, say it. I don't have time for games. She let out a small, amused laugh. It's simple. I want you to give up on opening a restaurant. This city is small, Anna. One rumor is all it takes to make sure you never set foot in the professional culinary world. Her words cut deep, like knives slicing through me. You can't do that, I said, voice steady despite the fury rising inside me. Oh, but I already have, she winked, and I'm not doing it alone. I narrowed my eyes. What do you mean? Amelia lowered her voice, but the smile on her lips never faded. Your mother helped me a lot with this. She's really worried about you, Anna. She just wants you to come home. So, she made a few calls, met a few people. My mother. My voice turned ice cold. She has no right. Melly shrugged. Think whatever you want. But I'm giving you a chance. Back out now, before things get worse. I stared into her eyes, fury boiling inside me. Every word she spoke, every veiled threat about my mother. It was like a punch to the gut. I could run, just like I ran from my family, just like I had always chosen to hide. Or I could stand and fight. I loosened my shoulders, took a deep breath, then smirked. You know what, Amelia? She raised an eyebrow. I don't need your permission to succeed. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice to something more dangerous. And I don't scare easily. The smile on Amelia's lips wavered. You'll regret this, Anna. I shrugged and turned back toward the kitchen. Go ahead and try. As I walked away, I knew Amelia wouldn't give up that easily. And my mother? Just how far had she gone to try and pull me back? A battle was coming. But this time, I wouldn't run. The pop-up event was being held at a high-end restaurant downtown, where young chefs would showcase their skills before investors and culinary experts. This was my one shot, to prove that I wasn't just the runaway daughter but a real chef. But the moment I stepped into the kitchen to prepare for the night, I knew something was wrong. 6:00 p.m., 2 hours before service. I scanned the neatly arranged ingredients. Everything was in place, exactly as I had planned for weeks. My dish was a refined fusion of traditional flavors and modern techniques, something no one could replicate. Or at least, that's what I thought. But when I lifted the lid of the container holding the secret sauce I had spent hours perfecting, it was empty. No, this can't be, I whispered, my chest tightening. Beside me, Amelia stood with her arms crossed, a satisfied smirk on her face. Looking for something, Anna? Her voice dripped with mock concern. I clenched my fists, my breathing heavy. What did you do? She let out a small chuckle. I was just cleaning up for you. Such a shame. Someone must have accidentally spilled it. I knew this game. Amelia never fought head-on. She always used dirty tricks to eliminate her competition. I turned away, forcing myself to control my anger. Without that sauce, my dish would lose its soul. But I couldn't stop now. I took a deep breath, ready to adjust my recipe when the kitchen door suddenly swung open. A man in uniform stepped in, the health inspector's badge gleaming on his chest. We received a complaint about food safety violations in this kitchen. Who's in charge here? I froze. A complaint? Right now? Amelia tapped the counter lightly, feigning concern. Oh dear. Someone must have heard about her issues already. And at that moment, I saw it clearly. This wasn't just Amelia's sabotage. This was my mother's plan. They didn't just want me to fail, they wanted to destroy me completely. 7:15 p.m., 45 minutes before service. I stood in the middle of a chaotic kitchen, my mind spinning. No sauce, a health inspection, investors sitting outside, waiting to see if I was really the failure they had been led to believe. I wanted to give up. But before I could rip off my apron, a hand landed lightly on my shoulder. Running away again? I turned. Marco stood there, his gaze calm but sharp. I don't have a choice, I rasped. Marco shook his head slowly. You always have a choice, Anna. The real question is, what do you choose? I opened my mouth to argue, but just then, Sophie burst into the kitchen, eyes red and swollen. Anna, I need to talk to you. I narrowed my eyes. What are you doing here? She hesitated, then held up her phone. On the screen was an email, sent from my mother, to a group of investors, claiming I was a fraud who had used illegal money to start my business. My stomach twisted. Sophie bit her lip, her voice trembling. I overheard Mom talking to Amelia. They planned this from the start. I couldn't let them do this to you. I looked at my sister. The girl who had always had everything. Now standing before me, guilt shining in her eyes. Why are you helping me? I asked. Sophie swallowed hard, then said the last thing I expected to hear that night. Because you were right, and because I don't want to live in this cycle anymore either. I gripped the phone tightly, took a deep breath. I wouldn't let them decide my fate. 7:45 p.m., 15 minutes before service. I stepped up to the counter, scanning the ingredients I had left. No sauce? Fine. I'd make something else. Health inspection? They wouldn't find anything wrong. Smeared reputation? I'd let them see me for who I really was. Not the lies my mother had spread. I turned to Sophie. You're good at photography, right? She nodded. Good. Take pictures of every step I do. We're posting this live. Sophie grabbed her camera, ready to go. I met Marco's eyes, seeing pride flicker in them. This time, I'm not running, I said. He smiled. Now you're really cooking. I picked up the knife, my hands no longer shaking. No matter how hard they tried to break me, I would stand here, in this kitchen, and fight with my own hands. I stared at the counter in front of me. Only a handful of raw ingredients remained after Amelia's sabotage. No sauce? No problem. I ran my fingers over the spices, the fresh herbs. If I couldn't follow my original plan, I'd create something even better. Memories flashed through my mind. Standing in my childhood kitchen, my mother teaching me how to make creamy mushroom chicken, one of her most prized recipes. I had spent years trying to reinvent that dish, only for her to dismiss me every time. There's no need to change something that's already perfect, she would say. But her definition of perfect wasn't mine. I pulled out my knife and began chopping, each cut swift, precise. In my head, I was already crafting a new version of creamy mushroom chicken. Not traditional, not confined by outdated rules, but a statement. Beside me, Sophie quietly raised her camera, capturing every step I took. I didn't need to say anything, she understood. 7:58 p.m. 2 minutes before service. The dish was complete. Braised chicken in creamy mushroom sauce with Meyer lemon, accented with rosemary and green peppercorns, served alongside brown butter mashed potatoes. A fusion of heritage and modernity, of memory and the future. I plated each dish, took a deep breath. It was time to face them. 8:10 p.m., main dining room. I stepped out of the kitchen, tray in hand, eyes locked on the central table where the investors were seated. Among them I saw my mother, her expression unreadable, but her grip on her wineglass tight, as if holding something back. Amelia stood nearby, arms crossed, waiting for the moment I failed. But I wasn't going to give her that chance. I set the plates down, my voice steady and clear. This is my version of braised chicken and creamy mushroom sauce, a recipe I grew up with. But instead of copying it, I've transformed it into something that reflects who I am, keeping its soul, but giving it my own identity. The investors exchanged glances, picked up their forks. I said nothing more, I let the dish speak for me. The wait felt endless, but then, one of them, Mason Clark, a businessman who owned a major restaurant chain, placed his knife down and looked at me. The balance of flavors is excellent, he nodded, but more than that, it tells a story. I felt my chest loosen. I had done it. But I wasn't finished. I turned to my mother, meeting her gaze head on. You tried to destroy me, I said, my voice unwavering. But because of that, I'm standing here today. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but before she could respond, another voice cut through the air. Selfies. And so am I. All eyes shifted to my sister as she stepped forward, camera in hand. Sophie swallowed hard, but her gaze remained firm. I've spent my whole life living up to your expectations, Mom. I lied about what I wanted, tried to become who you wanted me to be. But I can't anymore. She lifted her chin. I don't want to study business. I want to be a photographer. A heavy silence settled over the room. My mother looked at Sophie as if she had just betrayed her. You can't be serious, she said, voice laced with disbelief. I've never been more serious, Sophie replied, sharper than I'd ever heard her. And I'm going to work with Anna to document her journey. I'm going to photograph the restaurant she's about to open. Because I believe in her. I froze, staring at Sophie. I hadn't expected her to stand by me. Not this time. But then I understood. We had always been trapped in the same cage. The only difference was I had broken the door first. Mason Clark leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, watching us both with interest. So we're not just investing in a chef, he mused. We're investing in a brand. Sophie nodded. Exactly. Mason smiled. I like the way you two think. I looked over at Amelia, her face had gone pale, realizing she had lost. My mother said nothing. She turned away, her expression a mixture of confusion and anger. But I didn't care. I didn't need her approval. I never had. Mason set his business card on the table. "Send me your proposal, Anna," he said. "I think we have a lot to discuss." I picked it up, knowing that this time, I was in control of where this road led. I had won. But more importantly, I had found myself again. 6 months later. The scent of melted butter blended with sizzling garlic, filling the kitchen with an irresistible aroma. I stood behind the counter, my eyes scanning the dishes being plated, each detail executed to perfection. My restaurant. No longer just a distant dream. After the pop-up event, I secured funding from Mason Clark, along with an opportunity I couldn't refuse. A professional kitchen, a dedicated team, and above all, a completely new beginning. I was no longer just the girl my family overlooked. I was Anna Hawkins, head chef, restaurant owner, and the sole architect of my own future. Opening night. The restaurant lights glowed softly, the wooden tables and chairs simple, yet inviting. Every corner was touched by Sophie's careful eye, decorated with photographs capturing my early days in the kitchen. Outside, a line of eager diners stretched down the sidewalk. I still couldn't believe this was real. Marco stepped up beside me, arms crossed over his chest. "Not bad," he said with a small smile, pride flickering in his eyes. I laughed, teasing, "Better than that cramped kitchen at Bangkok Bites?" He shrugged. "You're still learning, but you've become a real chef, Anna." Amidst the bustling energy of opening night, a familiar face appeared. I froze for a moment when I saw my father standing at the bar, holding a small envelope. I didn't know when he had arrived, or if I had ever expected him to come at all. I walked over, waiting for him to speak first. He glanced around the restaurant, taking it all in before finally turning to me. "This place is impressive," he said. I wasn't sure how to respond. He hesitated, then set the envelope on the counter. "I have something for you." I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a lottery ticket. The very one I had given my family that Christmas. Still intact. Still unscratched. My father cleared his throat. "I don't know why I held on to it all this time. But now, I think I understand. I didn't believe you could stand on your own, and maybe I was wrong." A lump formed in my throat. I had waited my entire life for this kind of acknowledgement. Pressing my lips together, I gave a small nod. "Thank you, Dad." He wasn't a man of many words, but in this one act, I knew, for the first time, he truly saw me. 3 weeks later. I was going over inventory when a shadow passed by the kitchen door. Amelia. She looked different, still carrying that air of confidence, but the quiet arrogance was gone. I crossed my arms, waiting. "What are you doing here?" Amelia took a deep breath. "I need a job." I raised an eyebrow. "After everything you did to me? You think I'd hire you?" She looked straight at me. "I've lost everything, Anna. My restaurant shut down. No one trusts me anymore." Her voice cracked. "I know I was wrong, and I know you have no reason to help me, but I really need a chance." I studied her for a long moment. 6 months ago, I might have taken satisfaction in seeing her fall. But now, I knew better than anyone that no one can stand alone forever. I sighed. 6 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late." A flicker of surprise crossed Amelia's face. "Really?" I shrugged. "But this time bring your own recipe." She gave a small nod. "I won't let you down." One late afternoon, I was cleaning up the kitchen when my mother walked in. I didn't turn around, but I knew it was her. Maybe because of her familiar perfume, or maybe because I had been waiting for this moment for a long time. She stood behind me for a while before finally speaking. "I want to see how you make your braised chicken and creamy mushroom sauce." I paused, then looked at her. "You want to learn it?" She didn't answer right away. Then slowly, she nodded. I think it's time I try something new. My chest tightened. But not from pain. I pulled an apron off the hook and handed it to her. Then roll up your sleeves. She took it, and for the first time in my life, I saw her truly smile. That night, as I stepped out of the kitchen, the restaurant was still buzzing with customers. I looked around. Sophie was snapping photos of a group of happy diners. Marco was guiding a young chef. My father sat at the bar sipping his coffee. And my mother, she was focused on the dish in front of her, hands careful, as if learning from scratch. I hadn't just built a restaurant. I had rebuilt something bigger. A family. In my own way. I reached into my pocket, pulling out the untouched lottery ticket, my fingers brushing over the unscratched numbers. Maybe, some gifts only truly hold value when we know how and when to use them. I tucked it back into my coat, gripped my knife, and turned toward the kitchen. This was my life. And I was just getting started. 1 year later, Hawkins & Co. was no longer just a dream. It had become a brand. Not a flashy, extravagant place, but a warm and inviting space where people came not just to eat, but to experience stories told through food. I stepped into the kitchen, no longer a young chef struggling to find my place. I was the head chef, the one who laid the foundation for every recipe, the one who turned every failure into fuel to rise again. And I didn't do it alone. In the corner of the room, Sophie was adjusting her camera lens with focus and precision. She had become a professional photographer, and now, her work wasn't just featured in the restaurant's menus, it was on the pages of renowned culinary magazines. I looked at my sister, remembering the day she had been too afraid to admit she didn't want to study business. But now she was no longer a girl lost in our parents' shadow. She had found her own path. Sophie caught my gaze and winked. "Hold still, Anna, you keep moving around." "How am I supposed to get a good shot?" I chuckled and tilted slightly so she could find her angle. "Perfect," Sophie beamed. "This is going to be the cover photo for your new menu." I shook my head but couldn't hide my smile. "Make sure the lighting's right. I don't want to look too serious." Sophie flipped through her shots, then murmured, "You don't look serious anymore, Anna. You look happy." I paused. Happy. I had spent years chasing validation, trying to prove to my parents that I was worthy. I used to think my greatest victory would be the day they realized they were wrong about me. But standing here, in this kitchen, surrounded by people who had stood by me, I finally understood. The only validation I ever needed was my own. I wasn't living for revenge anymore. I was living for me. Late at night after the restaurant had closed, I walked over to the bar where my father sat with his usual cup of coffee. He had become a regular. Never saying much, but always present. Beside him was my mother, the woman who had once done everything she could to pull me back into the family, now quietly flipping through the restaurant's menu. None of us spoke much, but for the first time the silence wasn't a divide. It was acceptance. My mother set the menu down and looked at me. "I tried your braised chicken and creamy mushroom sauce," she said. I waited, unsure of what she would say next. She gave a small nod, her voice quiet, but sincere. "It's better than mine." That one sentence, short and simple, was the acknowledgement I never thought I'd receive. Later that night, alone in the kitchen, I opened a small drawer near the counter. Inside lay the old lottery ticket, still untouched, the numbers unscratched. I picked it up, rolling it between my fingers. A part of me had once wondered, if I scratched it, would the money have changed my life? But now, I didn't need to know. I didn't need luck, because I had built my own path. I placed the ticket back where it had always been. Not as a reminder of the money I never claimed, but of the choice I made. I hadn't let my life be determined by a set of random numbers. I had built everything from the ground up, with nothing but my own hands. And that was the greatest victory. I stood in the heart of my kitchen, inhaling the lingering aroma of butter and spices. This journey wasn't over, it was only just beginning. I smiled, tightened my apron and went back to doing what I loved most, cooking. Anna's story is more than just the journey of a young chef. It's a profound lesson in perseverance, independence, and self-worth. In life, many people struggle under the weight of family expectations, feeling overlooked or underestimated. But instead of drowning in resentment or desperately seeking approval, true success comes from confidently forging your own path. Like Anna, sometimes we have to let go of the past, face our challenges, and build a life that doesn't require anyone's approval except our own. Anna's story makes us reflect. Have you ever struggled to find your place in your own family? What would you do if you were in her situation? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more inspiring stories about life and family.